Campione Mall Studios, located in the heart of Duval County, Florida. This is the unofficial Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Your host, Seth Studer. Woo! 26. Let's go. Woo! So crispy. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, bap, bap, bam. We got ourselves a great episode for you. I am wearing a tie and not my Jag swag because I have a day job here at Campione Law, where I work as an attorney. Listen, bad things happen to good people all the time. If you get hurt, auto accident, you're in pain, you didn't ask for it, it ain't your fault. Give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out. Guys, it's finally coming. After a 13-4 season, what do our fair Jaguars do next? Well, we begin our preseason conversation with none other than just mega ball knower, Steve Palazzolo of the Check the Mic podcast. We talk a little season preview and a little 99 Jags retrospective. Great conversation. All right, stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We got ourselves a very special guest. You can check him out on the Check the Mic podcast, brought to you by the 33rd team, along with Mr. Sam Monson. We got one of your ball knowers' favorite ball knower, Steve Palazzolo. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great. I'm excited. I'm very excited about this. Thanks for the opportunity to talk Jags.
You know, and before we get into our sicko mode, which is talking about the Jags of yore, let's focus here on the present. And I'm going to set the table real quick. Entering 2026, we're coming off of a 13-4 season. It's a weird case to me as a fan because it's almost like the purest form of run it back. You were able to keep Anthony Campanile as a defensive coordinator, Grant Ujiski, both had head coaching, sniffs. No free agency workout. Chris Rodriguez, a couple of losses. It's a weird way to have an off season. So from your perspective here, as one of the national folks, what are your thoughts on the Jags coming in just in general?
I'm an unbiased NFL analyst. Try to see the league through clear eyes, and you do get into that. So I'm glad you're saying it though, as a Jags fan. It is a weird offseason because I think as NFL fans, sometimes we get into this lull of here's what the team was last year, and they'll be the same this year. And as long as they, just tidy up, you add some pieces, and of course everything will be the same plus all of our additions, and we'll be better. There's probably 28 teams around the league saying that, right? We'll be what we were last year, but all these things improved. And some teams come out of the offseason and they don't feel that improved. And I think that's the Jags. Now, of course, any team can hit on their draft, and it's tough to project instant impact on that. But that's the feeling, right? Or did they sit back and say, "Hey, we're good. We're happy with where we were. We don't need to. We lose Devin Lloyd. We're fine. But that's where I have some questions. Did they improve enough, or did they lose too much? Could they have done more at running back? Could they have done more on the defensive line, defensive tackle, interior pass rusher? Do they feel good about the secondary? How's Travis Hunter going to be deployed to be able to solve some of those problems? That's not to say that the foundation isn't strong. Right. And then the big question is, if Trevor Lawrence plays the way he did in the second half and Liam Coen is as good as he looked in year one, then they'll be perfectly fine because he's a good coach and they got a great quarterback.
It's like a perfect case of going, okay, things are the same. How's it going to project forward? And it seems to me it's like a bet on the coaching, right? Because Devin Lloyd, for example, second team All-Pro, breakout season, had produced, since coming out of Utah in flashes, but Campanile just, some magic pixie dust. So from our perspective, from Gus Bradley, and all the coaches that we've had, until now, it feels just like, okay, it's a bet on the coaching, and that's the biggest X factor, which I think, when you think about it, just kind of squares the Jaguars offseason and going, okay, if it's a bet on coaching, the rest of the offseason, even just kind of the draft versus consensus board, debate that happened, kind of plays out. How do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this on my show a bunch. I thought Brian Daboll might have been a great coach because of his year one in 2022. And it's like, all right, well, maybe he's just an awesome coach in perpetuity and it's good for the Giants. We don't know for sure if Liam Coen is, but there's a little bit. I mean, and it's Liam and the entire staff, right? But if they're just excellent and Trevor Lawrence is going to play at that new level and they're always going to maximize what they get defensively, then yeah, they'll be okay. I think it is a little bit of, look, I think it's such a fascinating process because James Gladstone and the staff there clearly have their own type of player. They've drafted differently, signing a guy like Cole Van Lanen, to be their, one of their tackles of the future when maybe the rest of the, he'd been a backup for so many years. They're seeing something, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. And they're valuing their players a little bit differently than, the rest of the league. So maybe it's not as conservative as it feels because of their read on their roster and the players that they have.
And one last kind of big picture question is before we get into some fun. I got on the draft, since that draft happened, and I haven't, come on there and really spoken about it here just yet. It versus consensus boards, it seems like they were reaching one round too early for every pick, save for the Emmanuel Pregnon pick. And now, kind of as we're getting into training camp, has your kind of opinion, because it seems like Liam Cohen's just wanted to be able to throw more and be more flexible, right? Have multitudes, of that offense, especially with that Borkature pick. Has your opinion kind of changed? I know it does. The draft consensus board and the jumps haven't changed, but has your view on that evolved at all?
The only thing that I've had to, I think, go back and study a little bit more is the value of the blocking tight end and try to look at it. And so when I broke down the impact in the run game for a tight end, there is some, I don't want to say volatility there, but there's some impact there, right? How the impact of having a good tight end versus a below average tight end as far as the run game goes, it does significantly hinder the run game. And so I'm trying to learn, Seth, when we argue in the social media age, your professional job of, arguing, to try to, and always do this the right way, but try to steelman the other side, right? Try to give the other side the benefit of the doubt. So I'm trying to get into the headspace. Let me try to figure out if the run blocking tight end truly does have as big of an impact as the NFL suggests. And you can make a case, you could make a case there. My case against is, we'll find those guys in the fourth round or later. Don't do it in the second, Right. So I think there's arguments on both sides. I want to see how it plays out because Liam Cohen on paper might have the best, 11 personnel group, 3 wide receiver or 4 wide receiver group, especially with Travis Hunter involved. So do you actually need to get 2 or 3 tight ends on the field when you have Parker Washington, who's great, right? My guy, Parker Washington. You have Jacoby Myers, who helped turn this offense around. You have Brian Thomas Jr., who we know how great he was as a rookie. So that's my question there. My general theory is I don't know if I want to make massive schematic changes through the draft. I don't know if I want to draft because of scheme as much. And so that's where I have some pause. But I get the idea of, hey, when the run game is working, the tight end is usually involved. And so I do get that aspect of a coach wants the ability to, it's old football, right? You don't know if I'm going to run or pass. And you do that by having multiple tight ends on the field. So I do understand it from that perspective.
And I think some of the sloppiest games last year were when Britton Strange was out for that spell during the middle of the thing. So, but at the time, I'm thinking I'm on my brother's bachelor party and I see who we pick. I'm like, who the fuck is Nick Forkinshire? And then now I'm drinking the Kool-Aid going, well, it makes sense. And then you're doing the whole fan thing. Yeah. Right, exactly. Just arguing the other side. And again, that's the time will tell thing. And so I'm looking forward to getting into it. But now I got some some sports cliches here for you. You're probably familiar with some of these. Let's start with overreaction or not. All right. Let's see here. So I'm going to give you some stats about the Jaguars team rankings on both defense and offense. DVOA, offense was 14th, defense 8th. EPA per play, Jaguars last year were 12th on offense, 3rd on defense. Points per game, Jaguars were 6th on offense, 8th on defense. Yardage, 11th in both offense and defense. Here's the overreaction. Will the Jaguars be top 10 in both for total yardage in 2026?
Yard. So of all those numbers, all the advanced numbers love the Jags defense, but if we were just using this old school yards number, it would look worse, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to say yes, they'll be in the top 10. Now, if you had asked me if they're going to regress a little bit in the advanced stuff, I'd say no. But as I know my audience. You got to play to the audience a little bit. So yeah, of course they're going to be top 10 in both. Absolutely. Offense, absolutely. They're easy. The defense is the question. Of course they will be.
And so moving on, we got the X factor. And do you know where that's the big cliche. Do you know where X factor comes from?
I don't.
Algebra. I had to look it up myself. It's just like solving for X. It was a lot less of a cool thing than I thought it would be.
My wife will appreciate that as a math teacher, math major.
Yep. And so it's a lowercase X factor. So outside non-Trevor Lawrence, non-Travis Hunter division, who is the Jaguars 2026 X factor?
Parker Washington, of course. Parker Washington. I will look. We did our sleeper list in the 2023 NFL draft, and I'm going to post this image in perpetuity. I had my list of Puka Nacua, Parker Washington, and Xavier Hutchinson from the Texans. But it doesn't matter about him. It really only matters that Puka Nacua and Parker Washington were on my sleeper list in that draft. Shoot. And every time when Parker does well, I'm feeling good. He's the X factor. Took over last year.
Does he have a little Golden Tate in his game?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember who I have to look up in my notes. I don't know if I used Golden Tate, but it was something similar because he's got that strange body type, but then goes up and gets it, wins at the catch point, has some feistiness. And he just, had some inopportune drops early in his career. It's like as soon as he felt like he was getting going, there's a drop or there's like a little mishap. I thought he always had it in him. I was really glad to see him break out last year the way that he did, though.
I think probably for me, my X factor would be Arik Armstead there, and whoever's playing that 3-5 technique on the inside, because the Jaguars, I think their defensive numbers were so good, their pressure numbers were so good, but really couldn't get home. I think they ended up being like 25th, 26th, something like that. I think, if Arik Armstead can really push that pocket and allow Travon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen to get home, I think they're going to be a different beast.
That's probably the best real answer, though. Defensive, yeah, because like an interior pass rusher is probably my biggest question about the Jags this year, or another edge rusher and moving Travon around or whatever they want to do there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that is, especially with the Travon question. So the next cliche I have is buy, sell, or hold. Do y'all do that one on your channel?
We do not. I don't think. Maybe every now and again we break it out at some point, but.
So Steve, as you're sitting here today, are you buying, selling, or holding the chances of the Travis Hunter trade being worth it?
Worth it is tough because I'm very analytical, and you got to go. I would have to go back and mathematically say, well, what's the literal alternative is Mason Graham,
right,
and
Judkins.
Judkins and Casey Concepcion or the other players you could have had at those spots. So like literally no. So I'm going to sell the literal value of the Travis Hunter trade. But I could buy the idea that it's still the right move for the Jags. And that you'll get good return on that because I think he'll be a very good 1.5 way player.
And that's the weird part right there which comes back to the question I asked you at the beginning about being able to project here into next year is this Travis Hunter question. And will that at the end of the day, obviously history is, looking back in hindsight 2020 on this, But when you have a 1.5, shoot, might as well put him as a kick returner too. Have him play all three phases.
Yeah.
And it will be really interesting to see just logistically, from my point of view, logistically, the coaching staff had such a difficult time. I mean, you're a first-time head coach, first-time DC, first-time OC, and you have this, problem where, I mean, how do you practice them? How do you divvy it up? All that kind of such. And you saw it click in the Rams game, and then LCL tear in the bye week, and it is a huge question mark coming into 2026. And then I think Rich Eisen does this next cliche. What's more likely? You hear that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. So this one's a little one. So what's more likely? Travon Walker finishes 2026 with a PFF overall grade of above 75. Little context. He was 68.2 in 2024, 67.7 last year, played a little hurt. Or the Jaguars run more than 60% of their snaps in 11 personnel, meaning one back and one tight end.
Oh, man. So 11 personnel. They've got the personnel to do that. That's how the Rams used to play. When Liam was there, they were at like 90%. Forget 60%. But they just did this whole tight end dance this offseason.
And one caveat to maybe help you on this one. Last year, 65% of their plays were out of 11 personnel, which was 8th in the league.
Yep.
60th would have been exactly like dead middle, like 15th. So what's more likely, over 60%, 11 personnel, or PFF 75 for Travon Walker?
All right. So again, know the audience. We'll say the 11 personnel goes down because of the tight end dance, right?
Yeah.
Adding all the tight ends. So that's going to go down. And Travon, I will say, I think he's started to come into his own, rushing the passer, a little bit more consistent, starting to, I think, see the athleticism show up a bit more, even though he did get hurt last year. I don't know if he's a top 5 run defender in the NFL, like some of my Jags fan listeners have suggested to me. I don't know that he's that good, but I think he's a solid run defender and on the upswing. So I'll say 75 for Travon Walker is more likely.
The obvious comparison there is the Mario Williams, number 1 overall draft pick with Travon's career there. And we'll see what he does, because I think he can amplify. I mean, if he shows up, and with Travon, the best of ability is availability, and he's been available his entire career, short of a few games last year. So I expect this will be a very interesting season there for the former number 1 overall pick. And then I got to fill in the blank for you, Steve. Trevor Lawrence will enter the 2027 season next year as a top 5 quarterback, or like tier 1, according to Mike Sando, if blank.
If they go to the conference championship or better. I think a lot, because you got to know the audience here. Sando's going to more coaches than executives. Coaches value winning, and Trevor Lawrence is already a perceived tools. He's already got the height, weight, speed, arm. He's got all the stuff you're looking for. If they put it together and go on a run and make it to the 3rd AFC championship in Jaguars history, 4th AFC championship in Jaguars history, as I'm counting in my head, then he'll get the tier 1 status next year.
And that's the big thing on William Trevor Lawrence here this year. It's you've seen so many flashes. That 8-game, 9-game, really, even against that Houston game, he was pretty good. And just, I've never seen a quarterback rolling to his left being able to make that throw. Like,
the confidence that he had doing that was very impressive. The way he did that like once a week. Yes.
And that coincided with Liam Coen said, letting it rip. And then you think about, okay, one offseason together, more training camp together, what can be?
Yeah.
And so 5th in MVP voting last year, And finally, do you mind telling the listeners here, like, what the us versus the Shouty show cliche is, and how that came to be?
Sam and I started this on our show a couple years ago, and They were the Shouty shows are what we've called ESPN shows, right? All ESPN and Fox and all these shows where everybody's got to be a little bit louder than the next person and argue ridiculous points and only talk about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys and LeBron's legacy and the same stupidity and just embrace debate shows. And a lot of as analytical people, we're like, here's my case. And they're like, we don't need a case. We're just going to yell a little bit louder than you. And whatever I saw yesterday is the most important thing. And it's been true forever because I saw it yesterday. And those are our Shouty shows. And so we do a whole segment kind of. Yeah.
Have you had a Jags Shouty show topic that you
there's nothing to respond to.
Right.
There may have been somebody who's like, I don't, maybe Richard Sherman. I don't know when Sherman said, I don't watch the Jags or something. I don't even think we would have called that out.
All right.
There's nothing to react to.
Yeah, really. So in that case, I'm going to give you a live Shouty show. Fair?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. I'm not a financial advisor, but you should take out a second mortgage on your home and smash above 8.5 wins Jacksonville. They are coming back. Listen, Liam Coen was 3 Diana Rossinis away from Coach of the Year last year. We're running everything back. My God. And we just pretend that none of this ever existed. We pretend that they didn't run into probably the most dangerous team. Shoot, the Jaguars bought their B-plus game against Buffalo. Josh Allen had to bring his A-plus game. And only then did they win by 3 points. You're coming back with a top 5 offense, top 5 defense, and the advanced metrics, the standard metrics. I would bet the farm on the over. And Sam Monson for betting the under. Ugh, can't believe it. Your reaction, Steve.
That's good. They that is the way you do it. I mean, they won 13 last year. Of course, 8.5 it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. They're rolling it back with the same crew. Of course, they're going to be higher than 8.5. I agree. It's good. Good Shouty showing. I think it's.
Thank you.
You actually used too much evidence, probably.
Oh shoot, that was what. Okay, that's right. I got to use
too much evidence,
man. I got to use a lot more feeling on this.
Trevor Lawrence is the chosen one. Something like that. Yeah.
Too many facts. Okay.
Too many facts. Yeah.
Okay.
We can work on that for the next time.
You got it. And let's see here. Finally, I guess you had said over 8.5 there on your prediction show. I don't want to lock you in today, but can you give me a 2-game range of where you think the Jaguars regular season record will be?
Yeah, I'll say 9-11.
Okay.
9-11. Is that fair? A little bit of
regression, that's fair.
Or, I think that's fair.
I'm
a little hesitant. I'm hesitant with team. Like, it's easier to say, the Chiefs will bounce back because there's 4, 5, 6 years of evidence. I'm always hesitant when there's only 1 year of evidence, but I'm always 1 year away. If you stack another 12 or 13 win season, it's like, all right, the Jags are here, right? It's the mid 90s again. We're back.
Yep.
Competing for championships every year. So
yeah, my brain tells me 11. My heart tells me 12. It's just hard to win 13 games, to be honest.
Yeah, it's tough to get back to that.
It is.
Even in the South, even in the AFC South.
That's right. Now let's talk about 1999. Let's talk about the heyday, the myth. Just everything in my head has been compared to that season. And that's how, that's why I reached out to you, because I knew that, the 90s Jags had something, with you. Tell me that story, because I don't know where that came from.
So I grew up in New England, Boston area, and when I was real little, the Patriots were awful. The pre-Drew Bledsoe era, they were terrible. And so he was drafted in 1993. Patriots had the first overall pick. So my more formative years, up until I was 10 years old, remember they had blackouts, right? We know about blackouts. The Patriots were blacked out all the time. So I didn't even see the Patriots play football, I don't think, until Bledsoe was drafted. Now, I was a much more of a baseball fan than a football fan at that time in my youngest years. But I didn't even see the Patriots. My dad didn't care. It wasn't like anybody in my family really cared. It was like, they're going to win 1 game, 2 games, and that's what they were doing back then. So I didn't really have a team. And then, I started watching football and loved it. And in 1996 rolls around, and for whatever reason, I wish I had documented this, but when so I had seen Brunell, I think, on Sunday Night Football. I think I saw the 95 Jags Packers Sunday Night Football game.
Okay.
And Brunell's running around making plays. I'm like, I kind of like this guy, like the uniforms. So I kind of like this guy. Put it in the memory
90s,
banks.
The 90s teal. It just
teal was
nice
everywhere.
vibe.
Everybody's Charlotte Hornets, starter jackets. Everybody was rocking those things. And so that put that in my memory, 95. And then in 96, they're 4-7. And again, I haven't watched many Jaguars games. They're not on. I don't have DirecTV. I don't even know if DirecTV existed back then. It's like I caught a couple games here and there, but they're 4-7. And I'm like, I'm kind of rooting for this team. I for whatever reason, I was like, if they win out and go 9-7 and some other they needed help, right? Some other teams needed to lose. If they go 9-7, they have a shot to make the playoffs. And of course, we know it's the craziest run. They got Vinny Testaverde fumbling handoffs and Morton Anderson missing field goals and the whole thing, right? And so they're 9-7, and then they go into the playoffs, and you watch them beat the Bills. I was so fired up. I'm like, this is my team. I'm watching Brunell, and they beat the Bills and they beat the Broncos, and I'm like, I'm hooked. So I was a Jags fan from that point on. When they were 4-7, but they hooked you when they did this little playoff run, and I was rooting for them to beat the Patriots in the AFC Championship against all my friends' wishes. So. That was what it was like back then. So I became a Jags fan in 96 officially.
Wow. Over the hometown Patriots there for the 96 championship game. Man.
Yes, I was, because I rooted for the Texas Rangers in baseball, Florida Gators in football. I just grabbed whoever I liked. So I liked Danny Werfel in Florida. I liked Brunell in the Jags. I liked the Rangers lineup starting in about 91, 92, and I just started liking who I liked.
It's always funny just how because here in Jacksonville we have a lot of transplants come in, so you got Packers fans, Vikings fans, all the sorts. But man, that initial ride was so crazy, and it culminates right after that insane 15.5 underdog over the John Elway. Right, that's the last playoff game he ever lost.
Yep.
To 97, where Elway gets his revenge. 98, lose to Chad Pennington, Keyshawn Johnson. They're, I believe, in the divisional.
Vinny Testaverde was the QB that year.
Was he?
That was pre-Pennington. That was the year before they drafted Pennington. Yeah.
Was that Bill Parcells there that year?
Yeah. So Parcells had just taken over that year, I believe. 97. He kind of runs himself out of town with the Patriots. Him and Belichick's the defensive coordinator. And they dominated the Jags in that playoff game.
Mm-hmm. They really
after the Jags beat the Pats in their first home playoff game, and then lose to the Jets in the divisional.
And then and I had talked about this on a previous episode, but essentially Coughlin's. This is classic Coughlin. This isn't watered down New York Giants Coughlin. He's the general manager effectively too. And they push all their chips in the middle for 1999. And Steve, you're my Sherpa here on this. They get Dom Capers for the defensive coordinator, later longtime DC for the Packers thereafter. But set up the pieces for what made that possible.
Yeah, so the end of 98, if you're listening to the narratives and everything, the Jags defense, they gave up 50. I remember Brunell was hurt. They play a Sunday night game against the Vikings. Brunell's hurt. Jonathan Quinn is getting the start as a rookie, and they get smoked. They give up 50 points to rookie Randy Moss's Vikings. So the defense was taking a hit at the end of 98. They were soft, soft as in playing too much zone and giving it up and this and that. They brought in Bryce Pop that year, and he wasn't really getting after the QB. He had 17 sacks the year before, and he wasn't doing it with the Jags. So they needed to get, the zone blitz, man. You got to get that Steelers zone blitz going. And Dom Capers has such a fascinating career because you look back at all of his time, and he was really good in his first year in all of the stops, including this one in Jacksonville, where his defense worked for the first year, and then it just kind of they tapered off it did. Yeah, like it did in Jacksonville. So you bring in Dom Capers, he brings in Carnell Lake. He was one of the best players in the NFL, safety corner as slot hybrid, at that time. So they had him playing nickel. And then
I think Gary Walker comes in.
Gary Walker comes in from the Titans, so they shore up the defensive line, but they already had a lot of really good pieces. So part of it was the young players from 96, 97 are maturing, and they bring in some of these free agent pieces to shore things up. And, Fred, had been great in 98, and you have some excitement about him going into 99. So I think these things just kind of came together. And they were in Tom Coughlin took over the play calling too. He had
okay. I was looking for that. I was like, who is he? Oh, so Coughlin was that was Coughlin's boy in 99, huh?
If I remember the timeline right, they had Kevin Gilbride in 96, running their like run and shoot concepts.
Right.
Chris Palmer was there in 97 and 98, and then Palmer goes to become the head coach of the Browns, the expansion Browns, in 99. So right. Coughlin's just like, I'm taking over the play calling, and give
me the rock, yeah.
And we'll talk about it because it was for me, it was like I was rooting for this offense and this passing attack. And the 99 passing attack wasn't as explosive as some of the other years, but the defense was better, right? So Coughlin is playing this full game manager thing. There were games where like Brian Barker's getting all the game balls because he's punting the ball inside the 5, 6 times or whatever. So they became a better all-around team, and Coughlin's, pulling the strings, even though it didn't look as fun from a pass game perspective outside of a few games. So that's where we landed here in 99.
And one of the cool things that when I was looking this up is, 99 is the original Sacksonville. Had 2 more sacks. Yeah. I think 57 sacks as opposed to the vaunted 17 Jaguars with 55. And like, it was just guys upon guys. You had Kevin Hardy picking up sacks. Just, you had so many different playmakers on that defense, number 1 scoring defense. And that's the part of the myth, I think, of the 99 Jaguars with the offense versus defense, which the offense is still explosive. But that defense honestly doesn't get enough love in my opinion. They were
incredible, and it started early. So at that time, right, where you can't watch every game unless you're like money bags with DirecTV. I don't know how many people had that in the world at that time. 10 people.
Right.
And so every national game, I'm up in Boston, I could only watch the national games. So I got to throw this on VHS, make sure it's recorded. So I got a bunch of old VHS Jags games. But I have their week 3 preseason game against the Chiefs.
Okay.
And I watch this for fun. I watch these things back every now and then. And Phil Simms and Greg Gumbel, they're the national preseason broadcast. And back then in week 3 out of 4 in the preseason, that was the dress rehearsal game, right? You would play the starters for a half plus or whatever. And I think there used to be some signal in those games, right? It's like starters versus starters, and you'd actually get a bit of a feel for what the team might be looking like that season. And the Jags play the Chiefs, and it was like everything that you were about to see that season happened. The Jags were, Brunell's trying to hit downfield passes. They're like just a little off, but they're trying to be aggressive. Fred Taylor rattles off a 86-yard touchdown run, 2 touchdowns, one of them for 86. Aaron Beasley has an interception, and they sack the Chiefs quarterbacks like 5 times in the first half. So I say all that to say, like, if you go back and watch that game, you kind of had an idea of how this season was going to go. You've got Simms and Gumbel saying, hey, they brought in Dom Capers. They're going to be blitzing like crazy. Brackens is going to drop into coverage sometimes. And they're going to create mismatches up front, and they're going to use Kevin Hardy, and they've got Carnell Lake, and Aaron Beasley's a ball hawk taking it. And it's like all these things that you saw during the season happened in this week 3 preseason game. And I think it really set the tone where they knew Jags were what they were gonna do this season, including the improvement on defense, because they never had a good defense in their history, in their 4-year history to that point.
And it's crazy how such a microcosm can happen in that dress rehearsal game. And they show up, I think, week 1 against Steve Young. I think it's like 41-3. I think Jeff Garcia got subbed in there. Tell me about Brunell in 99. Was that his peak, or was he starting to taper off? What did you see recall from Brunell in that particular season?
It's tough to really isolate what Brunell's peak was because 96 he led the league in both passing yards and rushing yards, which is a really cool stat. He Yeah. So for quarterback, for quarterback
Yeah.
rushing yards, obviously not
Yeah.
NFL rushing yards. I don't know if anybody's ever done that to this point. I don't think Lamar, and nobody's really done anything like that, I don't believe. But he had a bunch of picks and everything. So I think he got better as a player, even though the counting stats went down a little bit. I thought the pass game was a little off that year. It was a little up and down. There were some games where it's like, man, there's the throwback. There's Jimmy going off against the Steelers or against the Saints, a couple primetime games. I thought Brunell was fine. I don't know that it was necessarily his peak. It did feel like there was a little bit of a push-pull where he was used to having this explosive offense, right? He's used to throwing the ball down the field to Jimmy and Keenan. And they reeled it in a little bit because of the defense. They were happy. They won a game 6-3, right? They won 6-3 against Baltimore. They won 17-3 against the Steelers with like 2 safeties or something like that. And it was a wild 17 points or whatever that they got. So there were some games where they were trudging through it. So it's tough to say, hey, that's the best Mark was. But I think there was again, I rewatch these games every now and again because I'm crazy, but you hear the announcers say, there's a little tension between Tom and Mark and they want to be explosive and this, and I think it got better as the season went on, but there was definitely some ups and downs that year for the pass game.
Keenan, McCardell and Jimmy Smith, like the thunder and lightning. How did they, as an X's and O's guy, how did they complement each other so well? Not just in 99, but just kind of like throughout that stretch there.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Smith was the vertical threat, and I don't think I really even fully appreciated him until Brunell moved on, and you saw the same production with Byron Leftwich when he took over. That Jimmy Smith was just one of the best vertical threats in the NFL. Outside receiver, incredible speed. Brunell to Jimmy fade route was just a thing of beauty. The timing that they had, I mean, it was
tracking
awesome.
Ability.
Yes, so good. And you get you have the Denver one, of course, the famous one, but there's a bunch of others that just come to mind where they had such a good feel for that. So he was your vertical threat, and then Keenan was your classic, kind of bigger slot for that time, 6'1" or so, and but he worked the middle of the field. He was your Z receiver. He was your guy that moved around the formation a little bit more, and he was a very good route runner. Great hands, so they were awesome together. They were 1,000-yard receivers multiple times together with one more, Jimmy as more of a vertical threat, Keenan as more of your possession plus type of receiver.
And what's wild to me, when I figured this out a year ago when I started this thing, was that Jimmy Smith did not catch his first professional pass till he was 27 years old.
Yeah. He was with Dallas, and he had the injuries, and he had just a lot going on before things got moving for him.
And then just be able to explode like a supernova the way he did, it's just one of the most underrated careers. But that's the Jags tax. At the end of the day, that's something I've come to accept. But there's other parts of it too. I mean, Tony Boselli is our only Hall of Famer. Him and the rushing attack. I mean, actually, first let's talk about Tony. All-decade team, right? Just it seems that he was a savant at the highest level, for that period of time until it was, cut short by injuries. But what made him so damn good?
So it was like the golden age of left tackles back then. You had dudes who were 330 who could move and had incredible power. He was one of those guys. Incredible power at the point of attack. So he would just move people and nimble, and it's like you had a lot of these guys around the league. So maybe that overshadows him a little bit. The real thing is, he only basically had a 6-year career, whatever it was, a very short prime, but he was dominant, and he did get the recognition in that Bruce Smith game, maybe even too much, to be honest. But Bruce Smith in 1996 and didn't have a sack or only had a tack. However, it was, we didn't have PFF back then, so you didn't have grades. You just had this like, oh, Bruce Smith didn't do anything that game. He beat Tony a couple times, but for the most part, Bruce Smith used to dominate back then, and that was right. That was Tony Boselli's coming out party back then. But he was awesome. Tony was great. The entire O-line too. That was when the league started to go, like 300-pounders were rare in the early 90s. Yeah, it's the weirdest dynamic. If you go from say like 1986 to 96, the number of 300-pounders in the league, it was like 100x or some ridiculous number. And the Jags had, I don't remember 86. I just remember them bringing like William Perry was like, 330, 340. Right. It was like they thought he was 500, but the Jags O-line they were all like 320, 330. It was like, this is the biggest O-line in the NFL at the time. So they were a bunch of monsters, Leon Searcy and some of the other guys that they had there. And Tony was the anchor. He was great.
And behind that, I went to Florida during the Tebow years. I was very blessed.
Yeah.
And then I get my Gator, Fred Taylor. This would be his second year, I believe, in the league. I think still has the record for the longest playoff touchdown run at 90 yards against the Miami Dolphins. Tell me about young Fred.
See how we foreshadowed that in a week 3 preseason game against the Chiefs that Fred was going to have a long run at some point. I mean, I never forget watching his first game, Monday Night Football. Well, not his first game, but his real coming out party. First carry on Monday Night Football in 1998 against Dan Marino's Dolphins, and he takes it to the house, 77 or something like that. First snap.
Oh, just a home run hitter from the start, huh?
Oh my gosh, at 230 pounds. And I remember him from the Danny Werfel Florida days, and he was great then, but he was incredible as a rookie in 98, battled a lot of injuries in 99, but when he was healthy, he was always a threat to take it to the house. I always wished, because at the same time you had Marshall Faulk breaking out with the Rams. Marshall Faulk was a very good player, but he's a great player with the Rams, and they used him in the pass game a lot. I always wish that the Jags used Fred a little bit more in the pass game. I don't think he was as smooth of a receiver, didn't catch the ball as cleanly. Faulk was one of the best. I mean, it was like it was like watching Christian McCaffrey type, if people don't remember. But I always wish they gave the ball to Fred Taylor in the pass game a little bit more. For Brunell, for his passing stats, rack up those passing stats. But even then, they had Taylor catching the ball down the field at times. He's got a couple big plays in there, lined up as a receiver. So yeah, he was an incredible big play threat and a really nice compliment to James Stewart, who was a little bit bigger, more physical, a great goal line runner. And so there was like their own thunder and lightning package in the backfield as well.
The street's sleeping on James Stewart. He was a major contributor that year. And
very productive player for a few years for the Jags.
Yeah, really. Did he come out of Tennessee? Is that right?
Yeah, Tennessee. I want to say 95 was his.
I think it was the Jaguars' first draft. No, because Boselli was the first one. I think they selected him. So I think right around that time, like they're at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think it was in 95.
So we talked about Dom Capers bringing it into being this kind of like being deep in his bag. That 99 season. What kind of scheme was it, and kind of contextualize kind of like what he was able to kind of unleash on the league in 99 from a schematic.
So the Steelers were running the 3-4 zone blitz. And back then, when you ran a 4-3 or a 3-4, that was what you were in for the most part. So you were running base, 60 or 70% of the time. Now the league has switched. It's, 60, 70 nickel, and everybody runs a 4-man front, even if the ends are standing up. But he kind of adjusted and called it a 4-3. So you'd have 2 defensive ends, you'd have 2 defensive tackles, but he would bring Kevin Hardy up on the line, and Hardy was a traditional linebacker, but he blitzed a ton. So you'd have a lot of these 5-man pressures, or you'd have Kevin Hardy coming off one side, but Brackens would drop into coverage. So it was your classic zone blitz. It was happening in the mid 90s into the late 90s, where just dropping a defensive end into coverage was rare. I mean, it started to become a lot more common. So that's what you saw. So Brackens was a force off the edge, but Kevin Hardy as a linebacker, I don't know if he was first team all pro or whatever, but he had like 10 sacks or whatever it was.
Oh, he had close. Double digits that year for sure.
He was an incredible playmaker. And then on the back end, Aaron Beasley, 6 picks, whatever it was, had the pick 2 for on Marino, and the pick 6 in the destroying of the Dolphins that year. I thought he was able to just make plays on the back end as a ball hawk. And so it was just a really well-run defense. They were very good up front, and they created a lot of mismatches up front. And objectively, they were supposed to have a difficult, like they were the division champs the year before, so you're supposed to have a difficult schedule. But the schedule became a lot easier. They faced the 2 Super Bowl teams from the previous year, the Falcons and the Broncos. Right. The Broncos have John Elway retiring, so they didn't have Elway. They weren't as good anymore. And the Falcons completely fell off. Yeah, Chris Chandler was the quarterback, but he had like peaked in 98. Everything peaked for the Falcons in 98. They go to the Super Bowl, they lose, and they were terrible in 99. So like all the games when you're looking at the schedule that were supposed to be tough, like a lot of them weren't as tough, other than the Titans games, of course. So there was some schedule help there for sure.
So in my crazy, Jaguars head, are we myth making a little bit? Because I saw this stat pop up every time when y'all were talking about the cupcake schedule that the AFC champion New England Patriots from last year had. And towards the top of the easiest schedules ever, you have both.
Yeah.
The 99 Rams and tied with the 2025 Patriots is the 99 Jaguars. So that is something that kind of gets lost in time there. But in the moment, you're opening up against, again, right, is a first place schedule. And you kind of see some close games throughout the season. There was, I think, one or two walk-off kick wins. They're in there. But are we I'm a narrative guy. I'm a narrative guy. But are we myth making the 99 Jaguars a little bit?
Look, it's my favorite team of all time, but I can be objective about this because I'm looking through the schedule. So again, the games that should have been tough on paper going into the season, Niners in week 1. Immediately, so Steve Young gets knocked out of that game, like you were talking about. He looks awful. The Jags deserve credit for a lot of that, but the Niners weren't as good that year. The other one was the Jets. So they're coming off their 98.
Yep.
They beat the Jags really easily in the divisional round. Vinny Testaverde blows his Achilles in week 1 on that New Jersey turf. And so when they played in week 5, it was this Monday Night Football, big rematch. I'll never forget, I was in Disney World with my family trying to sneak away from my parents to go watch it because I'll tell you what was happening. At the same time, the Red Sox were playing in the wild card round, I believe, and Pedro Martinez was coming in relief. He had a 6-inning relief appearance or something, and it's the craziest thing. It's like a deciding. You don't have. There's one TV in the hotel room, and I'm trying to watch both. And I had my VCR set way back home. Like I'll be able to watch this at some point, but I got Brunell, I got Pedro. It was very tough. I'm trying to walk down to the hotel bar. I'm only 17 years old trying to catch the game. So Jets-Jags was supposed to be this big divisional round rematch.
Right.
But Rick Myers, the quarterback for the Jets in that game. I still have it on VHS, still have that game. They played, you have the expansion Browns. So people that may forget, 1995, they get rid of the Browns. They become the Ravens. The Browns come back in 99. Tim Couch is the first overall pick. They're awful. So they're all in the same. They play the Browns twice. They play the Bengals twice. And they had just drafted Achilles Smith. So 2 of the worst teams in the NFL make up 4 out of their games. And then I mentioned the Broncos and the Falcons.
Steelers twice and Ravens twice too. And the Ravens, I think they won that 6-3 game over them.
Yeah. And they weren't that great that year either. And the Steelers weren't that great. They were still trying to figure out if Cordell Stewart
was that the Cordell Stewart? Yeah, the original X Factor, right?
What? He was in and out of the lineup for years, trying to figure out if he was good. So they weren't as good that year either. So that's why when you stacked up in hindsight that season, every team that was supposed to be good did not have a good record. And the Jags beat up on all of them.
But then that myth making takes a turn for the legendary opening up and demolishing Dan Marino, Jimmy Johnson, 62-7. And so that's where the myth making comes back and puts it on that. Can you contextualize just how absurd that demolition was?
I think it was 38-0 in the middle of the second quarter. I mean, it was insane. You've got Fred going for the 90-yard touchdown. You've got, I think there was a long pass in there from Brunell to Jimmy. There was the pick 6 from Aaron Beasley, strip sack by Tony Brackens. Trying to remember all the plays.
Oh, yeah.
It was absolutely. Brunell threw 9 times in the game. I think he was 5 for 9.
I think Fiedler came in halfway through the second quarter.
Oh, he was in early. Yeah, Brunell. Because Brunell was hurt at the end of the year as well. So they go week. The second to last game, Brunell gets hurt against the Titans. They get waxed against Tennessee in Tennessee. Fiedler comes in, Brunell got hurt twice that year, and Fiedler kept coming in playing well. Fiedler played the week 17 game, the 16th game of the season. Then they had the bye, and then Brunell was coming back off injury for the second straight year in the playoffs, where he was hurt at the end of the year and then comes back injured in the playoff. He was healthy by this time in '99, but of course they were trying to get him out of there. They were killing him.
And I just checked it. So Jags up 38-0 with 12:05 left in the half.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
It was a 90-yard touchdown from Fred.
Yep.
Brackens had a 16-yard fumble return. Fred has a 39-yard touchdown reception, 25-yard touchdown from James Stewart. Then Fiedler threw it. I forgot he threw a 70-yarder to Jimmy Smith. And then a 38-yarder to Alvis Whitted, who I kept Alvis Whitted, who's now a wide receiver coach. This is what's fun about this. He was like the unpolished track star. He was like competing for the Olympics, 99 Madden speed. So when you played Madden, it was great having Alvis Whitted on the team. Oh man, if he could just learn how to play the receiver position, there's your deep threat. And it never fully materialized with him.
A proto Percy Harvin?
Yeah, but it was more just like straight. It was like Xavier Worthy, but
Xavier Worthy,
straight speed,
clock him,
speed. Whitted got a little bit better. He had a game winner against the Cowboys the following season on the little smoke screen, but
more Jeff Demps to more Gator.
Yes,
Gator
Dempsey, and Whitted had a big drop. I think in the AFC Championship against the Titans too. He did get behind the defense and had a big drop. That's when 17-year-old me was very upset.
And that's where the chess pieces finally kind of come together, because they're famously this beloved team loses to only one team, and that's to a great team in and of itself, with Steve McNair running around, Eddie George, Frank Wycheck, Mason. But I remember Samari Roll. These are ghosts in my head.
Samari owned my guy Mark.
Owned
him.
Owned him. So what when you get your VHS tapes back in there and you see those losses, what did you see that Greg Williams, who it looks like they just knew how to play the Jaguars correctly?
They did. I mean, there were poor Mark in the AFC Championship in 1996 against New England. They're driving. He throws an end zone interception. I think it was Willie Clay picked him off, and they ended up losing by 2 scores. But that would either tied it up or whatever, changes the whole game, of course. And then the same thing happens in the AFC Championship in '99, the Week 3 game where it was classic Jacksonville rain like crazy. So rain game in Week 3, I think there was another end zone interception. Samari Roll, peeling off his coverage, reading their red zone concepts. Perfect. They were just very bad, inopportune turnovers. And so I hate to say that for my guy Mark, but in some key spots in the playoffs, some bad turnovers were. So
Trevor Lawrence in sometimes in the red zone every once in a while, where I'm like, no.
Yeah. It's like it's good the whole way, and just cut out some of these red zone mishaps here.
And so,
the Titans just had their number, man.
And the what if is that's all predicated on the Music City Miracle,
which is crazy. I mean, that even the domino effect there. So let me go all the way back here.
Sure.
1997, Brunell gets hurt in the preseason, and Rob Johnson takes over in the first week of the season. Rob Johnson goes 20 of 24 or something against Baltimore, one game. He was unbelievable. He's throwing the ball to Jimmy and Keenan. He's doing the whole thing. Mm-hmm. He gets hurt, so we can't play week 2. That's his season pretty much. And he parlayed that one game into the Jags trading him to the Bills. So the Bills trade for Rob Johnson for a first-round pick. The first-round pick becomes Fred Taylor, right? So this is Rob Johnson's one game. They parlay it into Fred. Rob Johnson's the starter for the Bills. He gets hurt. Doug Flutie takes over. So Flutie takes over for the Bills every time. And it was one of those, every time they traded for Rob Johnson, but every time retread Doug Flutie takes over,
Flutie magic.
Including against the Jags. He has a walk-off keeper against the Jags week 6 or 7 of 1998.
Ooh.
And so Jags were it was week 6. They're 5-0 going to Buffalo. Flutie beats them. So they didn't get the rematch they didn't get to see their old friend Rob Johnson. So 99 happens. Flutie's still doing the same thing. Rob Johnson's in another lineup. And Wade Phillips is the head coach. And he decides for the playoff game, despite Doug Flutie always being better than Rob Johnson's getting the start for the Bills against the Tennessee Titans in the wild card round in the playoffs. And that was the Music City Miracle game that the Bills lose to the Titans. So Rob Johnson gets the loss, where if Flutie was in there, the Bills win and everything else. Never had to see the Titans again. So there's your butterfly domino effect there.
And that reminds me a little of to jump ahead a few years, the decision to start Leftwich over Garrard and the 05 wild card round against the Patriots.
That's right. Yeah.
Where Garrard was playing hot. My gosh, a little Rob. Oh goodness gracious! Oh, Steve.
Now my memory might be failing me, but that is clear as day in my head. All of those pieces. You might fact check me on it. Maybe a couple things are off, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Brother, you ain't under oath. You're good. Oh my god.
Great.
And so let's. This has been awesome. Thank you very much for coming on. I want to end on something a little. Just a counterfactual. And I don't like, I like hypotheticals. I mean, but the 99 Rams that year, right? Dick Vermeil, you had grocery stocking Kurt Warner coming in. Like, I don't even know what their preseason win total expected was, but it was low, right?
Low. Yes.
And they come in and it's the greatest show on turf. They have the number 1 offense, I believe, right? That year. Warner tosses it all around the yard. Young Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, London Fletcher on the defense. I'm trying to remember.
Yep.
And they go 13-3, make it to the Super Bowl. Now I'm going to do a little 30 for 30. What if I told you the Jacksonville Jaguars are able to win that AFC Championship game and face off against the greatest show on turf? So it's number 1 offense versus number 1 defense. Let's do a little game breakdown of what that may have looked like.
Oh, that's all I wanted to see. I just wanted to see my Jags against the Rams, and I had to watch the hated Titans. So Dom Capers against that defense would have been really interesting for sure. They did show, because I think they won the NFC Championship against the Bucks. Some weird, it was 12-9. It was some crazy score. So they had been slowed down just a little bit. Let me find it.
Yeah. By the way, who made in the Super Bowl that year? Who made that tackle on that
Mike Jones? Mike Jones.
That's it.
They beat so the Rams. I mean, the whole thing was wild because Trent Green was playing in the preseason. He was looking great. He gets hurt. Dick Vermeil's crying. Kurt Warner gets the start. In week 1, they win 27-10. He throws for 343. It's like, oh, okay. This Kurt Warner guy's looking pretty good. Now, in hindsight, again, it's like when you throw in Isaac Bruce, when you throw in all those dudes in the turf and whatever, but then they put up 35, 38, 42, 41. It's like, all right, they might have something here. The Rams, and they had the same thing. Like the Niners were down that year, so that's why their schedule.
And actually, their schedule was even softer than the 90. They're the softest schedule in NFL history, which is also crazy. And
it was the same thing. They had the Falcons were in that division at the time, the NFC West. The Falcons fell off a map. The Niners weren't as good. They played the Bengals. They played a lot of the bad teams. They put up 49 against the Vikings in the divisional round. Randy Moss and the Vikings. And then they beat the Bucks in the NFC Championship 11-6. And so
that scoregami,
so the Bucks were just starting to lay the groundwork for that
defense.
They were 3 years away from it, but they were starting to get to that. Warren Sapp's there, Derek Brooks is there, and whatever.
Right, yeah,
11-6. And then the Titans did a good job of slowing the Rams down. And then the Rams just hit on some big. I think they had a 78-yarder or something like that in that game. So I say all that to. I think it would have been a good matchup, and Dom, I think the defense would have done a good job.
And let's say, and how would the Mark Brunell and Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith and McCardell, how would they have fared against that Rams defense, which was not as lauded, but on the other side of the ball?
Yeah, they were one of those defenses. I think when they had a lead, they had some speed, so they'd get after you. I think the Jags would have been fine. I think Jags would have win. They win that game. They win the Super Bowl.
I think they do.
Undefeated against non-Titans teams that year. They beat the Rams in the Super Bowl if they had a chance. Dom Capers slows them down. Kurt puts the ball in harm's way. Aaron Beasley gets a key interception because that's what he was doing that year.
Double D, Donovan Darius, punches one out.
Yes,
over the middle.
Was great.
I would again, and just in my mind's eye, that they go all the way. So thank you for taking that stroll with me.
Let's ask Claude. Let's see what Claude thinks. Simulate the 1999 Super Bowl. Let me just see here.
Let's do it.
Do this in real time.
Yeah.
Simulate.
If the Jags had beaten the Titans, who wins the 99 Super Bowl versus the greatest show on turf? Let's ask our AI overlords.
No prompt here. I'm just saying, simulate the 1999 Super Bowl had the Jaguars beaten the Titans and played the Rams. So there's no nudge.
Yeah, no nudge. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't search your user profile to go that
right. Based off. I want the full game. It's going to give me a whole full game package. Give me a full game package. How should the outcome be decided? I can choose the Jaguars winning if I want. I'm letting the sim decide.
Yeah.
No. So thank you.
Let our overlords decide it.
I can't wait to find out. So yeah, it would have been the defense.
It's a strength on strength, and that kind of classic Super Bowl matchup, which is the kind of crazy thing. And again, I think the biggest takeaway from this whole retrospective again was really that how slept on that 99 defense is. Really,
they showed a little bit of weakness toward the end of the season. It's tough to. I mean, they had the next year was the 2000 Ravens, of course, and they had that kind of pace. Like, we're sitting there 9 games into the season, they were giving up like 6 points per game or something insane, right? And so that had to slow down a little bit. But yeah, they didn't do a great job against Tennessee. Eddie George ran the ball pretty effectively, and McNair's scrambling. You see that a lot with the defenses, right? They say that about Nick Saban's defenses through the years. Scrambling quarterbacks always, they're because it's tough to just run at them or throw on them, right? So something outside of the norm tends to get them, and I think McNair had a lot of success doing that.
And I think Brunell at that point was just not as mobile. I think he rushed for like 281 that year.
Yeah,
total, and just not as scrambling from that pocket. And McNair was such a dual threat in that time.
If I remember Brunell was, most lefties are better rolling left and righties rolling right. I think Tennessee also just did a good job of not letting him roll left and, forcing him out the other way. Look, teams always try to game plan that, but I think Tennessee did a better job of that against Mark as well. Plus they had Alvis Whitted's drop.
Is Brunell top 5 lefty quarterback?
Let's see. Well, you've got
I can't think of any other lefties. You got Vic. Steve
Young, Michael Vick.
Steve Young, yeah.
There's not many.
There's not many.
He's got to be. He was running around like crazy in his early years. Before he got hurt in 97, he was an incredible runner.
Those 96 highlights, I spammed. Those things are so awesome.
And they used him more. They used him on. Here's what's interesting about Mark. If you watch his 1999 games, he wasn't really a polished passer. And so when we as NFL analysts talk about a guy that likes to run a little bit and will he ever learn how to win from the pocket, that was Brunell. Right. Like, he actually did develop. Right. Even like if you watch, he had like 25 snaps with the Packers, I think in a playoff game too. He would just want first read and run. That's how he was in college, early NFL, most of 1995. And by 96, he's starting to get a feel for winning from the pocket. He had a cannon for an arm, very accurate. And then he just became a really good pocket passer who could also run. And so you don't always see that development from quarterbacks, right? We always question that. Can they do it? And Brunell was a success story when it comes to that.
He really was. And honestly, just
still working.
Really good pro. No worries. I guess kind of final, I'm going to give you a little what if here that I've heard. And
Yeah.
The 2003 NFL draft, Vikings are on the phone with the Ravens, allegedly, trying to get out of trade. And that's where the clock runs out on the Vikings. They forfeit their pick. My understanding is that it would have, they were trying to trade up to get Leftwich.
Yeah.
And then it goes to 0, and Jacksonville with Brunell and David Garrard out of East Carolina University on the roster runs that thing up there. And even then, again, just from rumors allegedly, is that Jack Del Rio, as opposed to Shaq Harris, the GM there at the time, and Wayne Reaver, wanted, obviously, they saw that Marshall carry down the leg with the shin and wanted him, while Del Rio wanted Terrell Suggs. And
interesting.
What a different story with John Henderson, Marcus Stroud, and then Suggs with Garrard. So
and
that's my counterfactual.
Love that. Tony Brackens had just started to get hurt, so he was slowing down.
That's what they needed. The Jaguars after that just never got that edge. They had a couple of flashes with players here and there, but not that.
Yeah,
but nothing like 99.
That was 03 kind of made me sad as a Brunell fan that they were willing to move on from him for Byron Leftwich, and Brunell still started the first 2 games. Mm-hmm. And if you remember back then, narrative-wise in the NFL, if you had a West Coast offense, it actually meant something. Like you were actually going to run 3-step drops and shorter routes, and it was different. So they brought in the West Coast system. The old system was a lot of 7-step drops, marks thrown vertically.
Yep.
And by the way, Leftwich was the last guy you wanted. Excuse me, running like the old school West Coast. He's got this big long wind up. He's he would have been great in Coughlin's system, to be honest. And so that happened in the NFL all the time. Like, we're going to run the West Coast, and it's like you want to make Byron Leftwich into Joe Montana. That he's more like Drew Bledsoe.
With the quick release, like oh my gosh, and it's just crazy that one of those counterfactuals. And does Mr. Claude have a game score?
Still nothing here. This thing's
still nothing.
6 minutes. We might not. It's 6 minutes.
It may have to be just
Claude's struggling. I'll send you a message.
Please,
but
send me.
I was wishing, but like Brunell looked great. Look up his stats in week 1 of 03. The Brunell homer in me is like, he's a great fit for this system. He was throwing to like nobody too, and his stats were great. They lose, but then it fell apart. Week 2, week 3. I think they started 0-3, and then it was Byron Leftwich taking over.
And then Chris Hansen is chopping his leg in week 5.
Yes.
And that's all she wrote. And then flash forward 20 plus years later, I finally have hope. I finally have real hope, because the last back-to-back playoffs, 98 and 99, they go back to the playoffs this year. Is this the first time they go back-to-back into the playoffs?
Yes, of course. Jags are back to the playoffs. Of course. They've arrived.
Of course.
It's the 90s all over again. You just got to get better every year, just like they did back then.
Keep sleeping on us. You heard it here from Steve Palazzolo. Thank you, Steve, for coming on the unofficial Jacksonville Jaguars podcast.
Anytime.
Hope to see you around. Thanks again.
Yep, you got it. Anytime.